Hi, I'm Eliott Bloom. I'm an undergrad studying geology and environmental science at University of Vermont, and I'm currently working in Julia Perdriel's environmental biogeochemistry lab, um, just studying acid deposition and soil,
Like you do.
like
Um,
one does.
Julia, how is she as an advisor?
Julia's great. Um, I started working for her by just sending her a cold email saying, please let me into your lab. And she responded, she's like, I'm on sabbatical, hit me up later. And so I ended up having Manya Rekhaus, which is one of her grad students, as my TA. And at the end of the semester, I was like, Manya, you have to let me join the lab. I that's that's all I want to do. Let me in. And she was like, okay. And then like 3 weeks later, I was out in the snow, snowshoeing to go collect soil samples. But Julia's been great. I don't know, she's a great help on all aspects of life, from school to writing to being in lab. She seems to know everything.
I have had a similar experience with Julia. I was very lucky. She brought me onto the team. She is amazing, really great at team building, so calm and collected, and
Mhm.
keeps everybody moving towards a shared goal. So I agree with you. If it's a chance to work with Julia, take it. Anybody, anywhere,
Yeah.
anytime. I'm really curious to ask you a little bit about that first email. It's very difficult for me to like reach out to someone in that way, to put
Mhm.
myself out there, to be so vulnerable and to risk rejection. What was it like for you to sit there with a pointer hovering over the send button on the email? And then how did you find the courage to actually click it and then go, oh my God?
I don't know. It was really stressful. I was also like, I think I was like a freshman when I first tried to reach out to Julia. So I was very like eager and like kind of like very excited about like everything related to college. So I think I had a little bit of adrenaline going. I was like, I'm gonna do everything that I possibly can. And um I I don't know, reached out to a couple different professors. It's very scary because you're just like, I don't know anything. Please let me learn from you. And I think that that's like a very scary thing to ask someone to like teach me how to do something. And I don't know. I think that I just I already had the email drafted, so I might as well send it, or else it's a waste of an email draft.
Right. All
Um,
that time and energy you put into doing that, you want to, use it.
yeah. And of course, like as soon as I met Julia, she's so kind and it worked out great and her lab's been awesome.
Was some of the self-confidence that came from going through with that, sending the message, getting brought into the team, did that help fuel some other parts of your undergraduate career getting to this point? Like, oh, I can do that. It worked. I can do this other thing too.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like through just like reaching out to like whoever I needed to and like different group projects, and then now in the fall that I'm looking to uh do a master's program, it's helped with that a lot where, you know, having that positive experience has made it a lot easier to like keep my head up in the entire master's grad process.
We'll talk about that in just a moment, some specifics, but I want to ask in general, you're becoming who you are at a time of great disruption in the world, political, military, and the climate crisis. And you're studying how the earth works, the complex systems of the earth. Is this a way that you can contribute to mitigating the effects of the climate crisis, that you can make a difference in this world that looks so distressing in the next 20, 30 years?
Yeah, I definitely feel that stress. I don't know. Studying environmental science isn't really like the most happy class or field, I guess. You learn a lot about like negative sides of things. But I feel like a lot of the work that we do in lab and um at like the critical zone network is focused a lot about like, all right, how this is happening, how do we adapt to this, or how do we learn more so that we are able to deal with this when the time comes. And I feel like that's a very uplifting thought because it's not denying what's happening or, you know, saying that like we're all doomed. It's like, okay, like this is happening. What are the next steps? And I think that's a really happy or positive way to think about the world. And I think it's necessary.
One of the things that Julia and the other PIs on the team are really devoted to is that team science,
Mhm.
hearing all voices, giving space for all voices. Was that something that you were familiar with before working with the cluster, or does the Julia and the other approach like sort of open your mind to what that could be like in the science world?
I think I think I was vaguely familiar with it. I mean, I think that people talk a lot about that in my classes, but I've never actually like seen it in like trying to be like that mentality actually like put into like a real life like process. And I don't know, I think that I don't know, Julia's lab is all women right now and has been since I joined it, which has been a really positive thing for me. You know, I've learned a lot from the other like women that are on the team and has kind of like changed how I think it's a really good experience to have as your first one in a lab where I'm like, all right, this is how I feel when I'm in a lab that like respects me and respects my thoughts and my ideas. And so I feel like it'll allow me to have know when things are wrong in the future. Um, and I don't know. I think that's really great. And also, I love everyone that I've worked with.
That's a very important part of it. It's enough to the fact that you want to keep pursuing academia and environmental science moving into the future as the next step of your higher education. Was that just a natural thing from working in the lab? Like, oh my God, I just want to keep this good vibe going forever. Or was it like, okay, I have to make a choice about what path I'm going to take. And this
Mhm.
science is really fulfilling for me as a human.
Yeah, well, I think that recently, when I started working in the lab, I did mostly like field work and then like the experiment that followed immediately after field work. And it was only like this year that I really like spent a lot of time like in lab. And that was always the section that I was like worried I wouldn't like. Like I always knew that I liked going outside and being in the field, but I was always like very tentative about whether or not I liked being in the lab because it's inside and I don't know, it's a very different environment. But I think I've discovered that I really do like it. And I think that, you know, I like kind of the rhythm that you get into. And so I think that that's kind of what pushed me to be like, all right, I feel like I can continue going down this direction.
What is the mechanical process for applying for graduate programs? Is it like going to undergrad? You get your application, you fill out, you write an essay, you
Oh,
send it in, and then you cross your fingers?
it's so stressful. um, you instead of like getting an application, you reach out to professors first, which is kind of horrifying because you like look up their little webpage and you're like, okay, I think I understand what you're doing. And then you type up an email that's like, I think this is what you do. I think that that lines up with what I like. Is that true? Like, do you have space for new grad students? And it's so stressful because you're like, you put yourself out there so much and you just like have to wait. And then once you hear back or like as time goes on, you can slowly start like actually like applying, which is just like an online application that's like more similar to undergrad. And then on top of that, you have to worry about funding, which is also like another can of worms that I'm trying to get into right now. But so yeah, it's a lot of like different pieces. And the thing that I find the most different is that when you're applying to like undergrad programs, you have like a college advisor or like you're like someone at your high school who will tell you this is what you need to be doing. No one will tell you what you need to do to apply to masters unless you ask them first. You have to be like, what, how does this process work? Will you please tell me? I don't know what I'm doing.
And have you found people to be generous with that information with you?
Yeah, I've reached out to Julia, obviously. And then I've talked to other professors that I have that I like. And Bren, who's in my lab right now, has been a huge help for like some of my worries. I'll be like, Bren, I haven't heard back from this person yet. And she's like, it's okay, like it's fine, like that happens. Just like give it some time or send them another email. And so she's been very great for some of like my worries because, you know, she's also done it recently.
That was a really nice Bren impression, I have to say. She is great. She is great.
Mhm.
So if you were talking, you were giving some of this advice or consulting with another person who was thinking about going down this graduate school path. And of course, you don't have to answer this. This is, but are there red flags that you see on some of these websites from these professors? Like, ooh, that's a thing that that's a sign for me that I don't want to be involved with that person. How do you decide where not to put your name in?
I think mostly it's kind of like um, a gut feeling where, you know, like obviously I don't want to work with someone who I'm not interested in the work that they're doing. Like that's the first major, like even if it's like in the kind of area that I'm looking at, if I'm not interested, that's a big no. I think that, you know, kind of looking at their overall research page and seeing if they talk about like trying to be inclusive or, you know, trying to make sure that everyone is welcome in their lab. I think that's another big sign that I want to reach out to them. Um, but overall, I think I just like read their bios and you know you can get a good understanding of what someone's like from um, their bios and like how they portray themselves on their websites. And then another good one is how they respond back to you. I was joking with my roommate who also is working on this process right now. And whenever we get like rejection emails, we screenshot them and send them to each other. And she got one the other day where she sent like a really long email and they responded with one sentence that was, I'm not accepting graduate students. And I was like, that's so heartbreaking. And I don't know, like, I don't want to work with someone who, you know, doesn't realize when people put an effort, you know.
Do you judge them based on their web presence? Do you visit some of their social media accounts if they have them? Do you like, oh,
I usually,
are there icks in there that stick out to you?
I haven't stalked anyone's social media. I haven't thought about that yet. Um, but maybe now I will. Um, I don't know. I don't really have any specific icks. I do like it when the web page is like well designed. Um, some people have web pages that are not super well designed, and that's not necessarily like a I'm not gonna like reach out to this person. That's more so just like a this is a little bit less convenient than some of the other web pages, but that's not really like a big deal. I don't really care.
Maybe they're so busy doing this amazing research, they don't have time to make
I
their
know.
web page look all pretty for you.
I definitely understand. I probably wouldn't make my webpage pretty either.
Takes time. I could be in the field or in the lab. I want to ask you a little bit about this transition that you're exploring as you move through this part of your career from the field to lab work. Because in the field, you're collecting samples. And in the lab, you're turning those samples into data.
Mhm.
Does it hurt your heart to like crush a rock, to melt a rock that you spent all that time collecting and now it's just going to become pulverized pieces of numbers in a computer?
So I don't have any rock samples, but I do work with a lot of like liquid samples, like leachate. So they're all like water based, but most of the samples I'm working with now are past student samples, and I feel so bad when I like finish them off. I'm like, this is Manya's last sample, and I just like take it out and I'm like, all right, sorry Manya, and then I'll like put it in my machine. So it is kind of sad. it's kind of funny. I don't know, just like going back and looking at these past student samples and being like, this was taken like 4 years ago, and it just been like in this freezer, and now I'm the last person who's gonna like use it. And so there's something that's pretty cool about that. A little bit scary. I don't know. It's kind of stressful, like when you know that this is the last bit of sample you have and you have to analyze it. You're like, I really hope that this goes well.
Because if it doesn't,
Yeah.
you don't have any more.
Mhm.
What about looking at your future? You're taking this step, or are you just like doing one foot in front of the other, or do you see yourself in front of a classroom taking on the role like Julia has? Was it something like, oh, I want to be that. That's what I want to work towards.
I don't really know. Um, I feel like I used to stress a lot about that, but I went into college as a biology major, and now I look at like soil samples and like other stuff. So I feel like I'm trying to just like do what I feel like is right at the time, because I worry that if I try and plan too much in the future that I won't my what I will want to do will change, and I don't want to get caught up on like one specific thing if my interests change.
It's you don't have to. That's one of the joys of higher education is you can choose anywhere you want and whatever you want to do, follow those paths. Is it
Mhm.
a passion that drives you? Is it curiosity? Is it just stubbornness? Like I'm going to figure this out? Like what is it that you reach down on those days when you don't want to go, I don't want to do the work today? How do you find the motivation in yourself?
I don't know. I always have felt that I'm like a very driven person, and once I get my mind to like I'm gonna do something, I like really don't stop until it's done. Um, so I think maybe it's stubbornness. I love the work that I'm doing, but like on the days that like I don't want to go into lab, it's the thought of, but I want to reach my end goal. So that means that today I'm going to go in and pipe it some samples for a couple hours, or something like that. Like I feel like I really want what I'm working on, and so at least like in the future, and so I'm willing to have a day where I don't want to be there.
If there's a high school student and they're considering higher education in general, and maybe science, someone said something in one of their science classes along the way, what would you say to that person to encourage them to pursue science?
I don't know. um it's cool. I don't know. um I feel like maybe not science, but like I feel like what I wish I knew going into college was that, you know, geology wasn't just about rocks. Um, I feel like when I went in, I didn't know that all of this was an option. That there's so much more in like a geology department than just like hard rocks. And so I think maybe I would tell them that and talk to them about like all the different pathways that you could go down with a geology degree and geology knowledge. So I think I talked to them about that because I really like the work that I've done in geology. It's been incredible. And I feel like if I could give that to someone else, that would be amazing.
Last question, and thank you so much, Elliot, for taking some time
Thank
today to
you.
talk about some of this stuff. Is if you could go anywhere in the world for this next step of your education, would you stay in Vermont? Would you stay in New England? Would you stay in the United States? Or is there a place in the world, or just Antarctica, you want to go there? Where would you go if you could go anywhere?
I'm not sure. I love Vermont. I would probably not stay in the Northeast. Um, I don't know. I love the idea of going west. My family lives in Washington State, so it'd be awesome to be close to them. Um, but yeah, I think out west or maybe Midwest. I don't know. Just somewhere new and exciting.
New and exciting is what we always want every day from our lives, I believe. What is going to come today? Let's hope it's something new and exciting. Thank you so much, Elliott. It's great to talk to you. Great to meet you.
Thank you. Yeah, you too.
I'm going to stop.